Hi, Shauna here from DancingRavenStudio.ca. Today I'm doing a watercolor painting called Afternoon Delight of a Tim Hortons Donut. This painting is actually a class sample for my Watercolor 2 workshop that ran in April 2016. The paper I'm using is Arches 300 pound cold press, and it's just over 8 by 10 inch size. As I moved the tracing paper off the drawing, I realized I hadn't put enough pressure on the pen. So out came the mechanical pencil to lightly darken up all the lines. So before I go any further, I am putting little dots of masking fluid to protect the sprinkle shapes that are on the top of the donuts. I look back and forth to my image so that I can keep the random placement of the sprinkles. A very pale all-over wash of Indian yellow. Time to look to see what the color of the light was on the white fabric, as the camera doesn't capture the color of sunlight. I dry the painting very well, but I only show you a short bit of the actual time it takes to dry the piece thoroughly. Now I begin on the hearts. I am doing a very pale first wash over each heart. I will come back to them again later on. When I was designing this still life, I was thinking about repetition. A fabric that repeated the colors I saw in the sprinkles. I was looking for simple shapes, which creates an ideal learning experience for my students. I am wetting the icing part of the donut so that I can float in the shaded parts of the icing. The water gives me time to move the paint around and to let it blend with softer edges. Start with the Tim Hortons paper bag. Using my hockey brush to do a whole layer of water covering the whole paper bag and painting the lightest value of the bag. Now on to the second and last layer of the hearts, allowing the other areas to dry. The thing I love about watercolor is that you can layer building up the value carefully. I put a piece of extra watercolor paper under my hand while I was working to protect the painting from any residual dirt or body oil that I might not have washed away. To the Tim Hortons bag we go. First area I did was the darkest part of the bag. It is where the corner was folded. It is the only really hard edge on the whole bag, so I place the dark value against the fold and blend it towards the corner. I am holding my reference image in my hand as I start to do the first layer of the shadows on my bag. Sometimes the painting dries too fast, using my hake brush with water to move the paint around just a bit. Now I am working on the center and the outside of the donut, layering the lightest value on it. I dried it quickly and then I began working on the cast shadows. There is a lighter line in the center that I want to keep light for now, even on the shadow side. On to the second layer of the icing, as I begin to bring the shadows closer to the right value. I place the paint in the area that I want, and then I clean my brush, blot off as much water as possible, and then I soften the edges of the paint. Coming back for the last layer on the bag. I wet the whole small area that I want to work in. This gives me time to get the paint on and to move it around. Once it begins to dry, I have to stop painting. I have a piece of watercolor paper that I am testing my colors out on. As you can see, I need the image close again so that I can compare what I am painting to the reference shot. I want to be accurate enough. I remember that really no one will know what the bag looked like totally. Time to work on the lettering. I didn't make a large enough puddle of paint, so I had to stop to quickly recreate the color I was using. I work hard not to have that happen very often. Into the center of the donut to darken the shadow even more. I leave the light band near the bottom of the hole. This is the last time I will be painting the shadows on the icing. This is the last layer that I paint. This time I work on the dry paper, cleaning my brush, blotting it off so I can soften the edges with a damp brush. I was very concentrated on doing the first cast shadow layer, and I forgot to put the camera on. I do the cast shadow at the center of the donut, careful not to scrub too hard so that the heart keeps its shape and doesn't bleed. I am darkening the shade side of the donut and keeping the reflected light that's near the bottom of the back side. Darkening the center to match the back of the donut. Dry it to set the paint. Here we are, time to take off the masking fluid so I can start to paint the little sprinkles. I am gathering all the bright colors that I will use for the sprinkles. I look to the image to ensure that I am keeping the randomness of all of those sprinkles. I had lots of fun designing this particular still life that I used in my class called Watercolor 2 Still Life. April 2016 was the first time I taught this brand new class. I needed to come up with a still life that would encompass a set of skills to expand on what my students learned in Watercolor 1. This still life needed to be simple enough in its shapes, but with some challenge to painting it. And I think painting sometimes just need to be whimsical as well, which my students enjoyed. Time for the second paint layer on the sprinkles. In the final stages. It is the details like the ones I'm about to do that make the donut look like you can pick it up off the page. Using Chinese white and a dotting stylus, I place a little dot of highlight that each sprinkle has. The final detail that I am doing on this painting is the little cast shadows behind each of the sprinkles. Immediately, the sprinkles look more three-dimensional. This is going to take a bit of time, but we're nearly there. I pay attention to the direction of the light so that I can ensure each cast shadow is at the correct angle. I'm using a brand new Low Cornell No. 2 pointed round because the cast shadows are very tiny. designing the painting. Here is the completed donut called Afternoon Delight. If you have any questions, comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it to your friends, and subscribe to my channel.